Part 19. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 181. Beatty's face suddenly darkened. She remembered the unpleasantness of her first meeting with Nan 11, and the unforgettable lesson she learned there was still frightening when she thought of it, all because of this bitch. Miss Bai is scolding me in her heart, right? Nan 11 seemed to be able to read minds, and her faint voice contained a somewhat understanding smile. Before I married the regent, Miss Bai was a defeated enemy in front of me. Now that I have married the regent, I am the legitimate regent princess. Doesn't Miss Bai need to salute when she sees me? Beatty's face suddenly changed, and she said coldly and angrily, "You are dreaming." Dream? Nan 11 smiled, as if she had heard some joke. Miss Bai is really ambitious. Beatty stared at her warily. "I still brought 2 maids here today." Nan 11 pointed behind her, and Yin Yu and Yin Chuang followed closely like shadows. "Miss Bai, do you want them to slap your mouth in public for being disrespectful, or do you want them to slap your mouth in public for disrespect? Let them complain to the regent?" Beatty's face turned pale. You think I don't dare?" Nan 11 interrupted her with a smile. Her expression was clearly extremely gentle, but it made people see a bit of coldness and danger. "Miss Bai, you can try if I dare." Bai Dai's face was green and white, and he glared at Nan 11 fiercely, his eyes almost bursting with fire. The other noble ladies next to them had stood up straight without knowing it. Their expressions were somewhat reserved, and they no longer had the arrogance they had just now. No one dared to speak for Beatty at this time. Although she was the queen's sister, they would rather offend the queen than the regent. Nan 11 ordered calmly, "How should we deal with those who are disrespectful to the princess regent?" "Report to the princess." "I have met the princess regent." Beatty was really afraid of the prince regent, so she reluctantly half-kneeled and saluted, lowering her eyes. "Beatty has been offended many times in the past. Please forgive me, princess, and don't argue with me." Beatty thought about what she had said before, and now it was like a slap in the face, causing burning pain. She said that Nan 11 was a frivolous person, dumping Gu Qingshu here, throwing herself into the arms of the regent there, and was slapped in the face by the regent in public, but Gu Qingshu's body still remains. She said that Nan 11 was not worthy of the regent and advised her not to have any wishful thinking, but now Nan 11 has become the legitimate regent. Relying on the fact that her sister was the queen, she thought she could run rampant in the palace and abuse Nan 11, a merchant girl, wantonly. However, her sister, the queen, did not dare to breathe in front of the regent. When the regent punished her that day, the emperor said nothing. Beatty was jealous and hated Nan 11, but she knew that the regent held the bitch Nan 11 in the palm of his hand. Whoever dared to make Nan 11 unhappy would be made unhappy by the regent. If Yin Yu is really allowed to complain to the regent, the consequences will definitely be worse than the last time she was slapped in public. Beatty couldn't bear the consequences, so she could only apologize humbly. Seeing that she had given in, Nan 11 did not embarrass her anymore. She just turned her head and glanced at the other women casually. When they came into contact with her calm eyes, the usually aloof ladies all bowed and said, "I have seen the regent, princess." Nan 11 raised her lips and smiled lightly. "I know that your salutes are not sincere, but it is not important to me, as long as you remember your identity clearly and don't mess with me again in the future." Speaking of this, she smiled with a gentle attitude. "People who messed with me in the past did not get good results, and those who dare to mess with me in the future will not end up well. So you are good, I am good, everyone is good. I hope you understand this." No matter what the ladies were thinking, they did not dare to show it on their faces. They only lowered their eyes slightly and maintained a respectful posture. Yet Xing Chen watched with interest and said nothing. The warning was effective, and Nan 11 walked towards the pavilion. At this time, the pavilion was so quiet that you could hear a pin drop. Linjia and several other royal princesses had different expressions. It wasn't until Nan 11 walked in that Linjia suddenly came back to her senses and quickly ordered the maid, serve tea to the princess regent. The maid obeyed her orders. As expected, people who become princesses are different. This bullying attitude is not ambiguous at all. Wrong. Meow meow sneered. I just wonder if the regent would be deceived by your appearance if he saw you looking like this right now. I think it's a good deal to bully others once and avoid countless troubles in the future. Nan 11 said calmly, you can also think that I am doing it out of kindness. At least this warning is not hurtful, but it only hurts my face. Are you showing kindness? Wrong. Meow meow sneered. Are you lying to ghosts? It is true that I am showing kindness, but it is also for myself. Nan 11 picked up the teacup and gently scratched the edge of the teacup with the tea lid. Her tone was calm and clear. I usually don't have much dealings with noble ladies from aristocratic families. You guys don't like me, and I don't want to join in your fun, so I think the best way to get along is to treat me as if I were nothing, and I won't take the initiative to embarrass you. Wrong. Meow meow had a sullen face and said nothing. But everyone has a temper. If I don't remind you today, I will be in a bad mood if you look down on me like a businesswoman. In the past, when I was in a bad mood, I would just talk to you and talk quickly. What can I do if something happens later? I am serious. If I use the power of the regent to do something bad to you, it will be ugly to everyone. Nan 11 smiled lightly. As for the regent seeing me like this, that's not the case. Please worry, the regent has always known what kind of temper I am, there is no illusion, and there is nothing to deceive. Nan 11 is right. Lin Jie nodded. We are all members of the royal family. From now on, we can see each other without raising our heads. How nice is it to be harmonious? There is no need to act like mortal enemies and be at war with each other every time, which will make it impossible for you to get down. Tower. Rongel lowered his eyes and drank tea quietly, not commenting on this. Nan 11, this girl is. Lin Jie's eyes fell on Ye Qingqing's veiled face, with a confused expression. The charming princess of Shu. Princess. Is she the princess who came to marry from Shu? Lin Jie, Rongel, and Rong Miao Miao were all surprised, and their eyes instantly fell on Ye Qingqing. Princess, is this shameful? Rong Miao Miao frowned, her tone displeased. What kind of veil are you wearing in broad daylight? Ye Qingqing raised his eyebrows lightly and stared at the girl who was speaking casually. Do all the princesses of your royal family have such upbringing and etiquette? Rong Miao Miao said angrily, what do you mean? The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 182. You look decent, but your brain is not working well. Ye Qingqing curled her red lips slightly, and the mockery at the corner of her lips was not concealed. I said you are uneducated, don't you understand? You are uneducated. Rong Mia Miao's face flushed, almost furious. You, the princess of the enemy country, are so presumptuous in front of me. Do you believe it or not, I will report to the Queen Mother and let her punish you. Ye Qingqing raised her hand nonchalantly, and the action of lifting her hair was charming. It just so happens that this princess is deeply dissatisfied with the decision of the two countries to marry. If you can really tell your Queen Mother, this princess will thank you, but I don't know if you have the guts. Hearing this, Rong Miao Miao raised her eyebrows. Do you think I have the guts? Miao Miao Rong Li, who heard the words, interrupted her in time. The princess has come from afar and is a distinguished guest of the great Zhou. We should treat her with courtesy and don't lose the face of the great Zhou royal family. Rong Miao Miao was stunned, and then realized that her emotions were out of control. She pursed her lips and kept silent with a stern face. Humph, I almost fell for this princess. Shu was a defeated general of the great Zhou. They sent a princess here to marry because they were worried about the strong military strength of the great Zhou. If the two countries went to war again, Shu would definitely not be able to bear it, so they quickly sent a princess here to ask for peace. The marriage between the two countries should show the magnanimity of the great Zhou. If she offended the princess at this time, people would say that the wrong royal family was arrogant and unreasonable, and bullied others. If the petty princess felt that she was wronged and went back to Shu crying, wouldn't she be speechless? It was really cunning, she refused to be fooled. Okay, today is the Queen Mother's birthday, don't make it unpleasant. Linjia started to smooth things over. Sister Nan is so much older than us, I'm afraid of calling you old, I will just call you Sister Nan in the future. Nan 11 smiled faintly, I don't care about these, whatever is convenient. She regarded Linjia as a friend, and it was completely fine to call each other by their names. The maid came over to add tea. With Nan 11's warning just now, the Princess of Shu didn't seem to be a woman who was easy to mess with. No one in the pavilion was stupid enough to take the initiative to provoke trouble. Although the conversation between them was not very happy, there was no longer a tense atmosphere. Why didn't Wen Lan come? Linjia looked around and didn't see Wen Lan. Didn't she come to the palace today? Miss Wen is in Xi'an Palace paying respects to the Queen Mother. Rong Li lowered her eyes and drank tea. There was no special meaning in her tone. The Queen Mother likes her. She always wanted to marry her to the regent. Miss Wen also loves the regent wholeheartedly. She even gave up the opportunity to enter the palace as a concubine. Unexpectedly, she didn't get her wish in the end. So she has been in a bad mood during this period. The Queen Mother called her over to comfort her. These words were said in a plain way, as if she was just stating the facts, without any other meaning. But at this time, saying such words in front of the legitimate regent princess, it is inevitable that people will think too much. The implication is that Nan 11, a latecomer, has taken the position of the princess that should have belonged to Miss Wen. And the Queen Mother deliberately called Wen Lan over to comfort her. Doesn't it mean that the Queen Mother favors Miss Wen and dislikes Nan 11? The atmosphere was a little subtle for a while. Linjia smiled faintly. Wen Yan's sincerity is indeed touching, but marriage cannot be forced. Just because she likes the regent does not mean that the regent must like her. Girls should be more reserved when it comes to marriage. Nan 11 sat calmly on the side, holding a teacup in hand, sipping tea quietly, with a relaxed expression, without any displeasure or embarrassment. Although many people say that Sister Nan comes from a merchant family and is not of high status, I think it is still a bit superficial. Linjia sat next to Nan 11, carelessly holding her cheek, and spoke like a normal sister chatting. The regent likes Sister Nan, it must be because Sister Nan has advantages that others do not have, and this advantage is exactly what the regent sees, so other women are not in his eyes. Sister Nan, don't you think so? Well, I like to hear this. Nan 11 seemed to be coaxed and happy, and raised her lips in a good mood, so Jia is still discerning. Let's go shopping tomorrow, and I will take you to MOU Pavilion to pick 2 pieces of jewelry. Rong Li originally wanted to make a sarcastic remark, but after hearing this, she gave up, clenched her hands, and couldn't help biting her lips. MOU Pavilion. The place where these royal princesses rarely go twice a year is as common as a rouge and powder shop in Nan 11's mouth. If brothels and casinos are men's dens of money, then MOU Pavilion is where noble ladies and daughters spend their money. Picking a piece of jewelry in MOU Pavilion would cost thousands of taels of silver. Nan 11 was generous and could take Linjia to pick 2 pieces of jewelry casually, as if it was free. But who can blame her for having so much money that she can't spend it all? Rong Li and Rong Miao Miao gritted their teeth secretly, angry at Linjia's behavior of trying to please Nan 11, and envious of her good luck of being able to go to MOU Pavilion to pick jewelry at any time. As for Nan 11, although she was rich before, she was always ridiculed as a merchant girl. Now she has become the regent princess. Not only does she still have endless money in her hands, but her status is so noble that even serious noble ladies dare not offend her. She lives a more comfortable life than the current queen. She has become a real winner in life. How can she not be envied and hated? This is exactly what Nan 11 wants. Things that can be solved with money are not problems. Things that cannot be solved with money can be solved with power. How simple is that? As long as it can give her peace of mind, it's fine. But at the moment, she was thinking about Wen Lan. She took a sip of the teacup and frowned, thinking to herself, will the Queen Mother have any tricks up her sleeve at the birthday banquet tonight? Even though she knew that the regent Rongyu was someone who could not be provoked, there were always people who did not believe in evil and wanted to die. She had to be prepared to deal with it in advance, right? At this time, not only Wen Lan was in Xi'an Palace, but also the queen and the concubines in the harem. The eldest princess had just arrived. As soon as she entered Xi'an Palace, except for the Queen Mother and the Queen, all the concubines and noble ladies stood up respectfully to salute. The eldest princess said lightly, "No need to salute," and walked to the Queen Mother with a cold face and sat down. The Queen Mother sat in the main seat and noticed that her daughter's expression was a little strange. She frowned and said, "What's wrong? Who offended you?" The eldest princess said calmly, "Mother, do you think that as a son, who among the relatives and court officials dares to make me unhappy?" When the Queen Mother heard this, she immediately knew what was going on and her expression became a little gloomy. "Regent Princess." The eldest princess snorted coldly, "A little girl who is still wet behind the ears dares to be so arrogant in front of me. Aren't you afraid of shortening her life? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 183. When the queen and several concubines heard this, they immediately understood what was going on. The source of the matter was still the former emperor, who made him have a child in his old age, and gave birth to the youngest son, the regent. So much so that the current emperor's nephew is 1 or 2 years older than the regent, the little uncle, not to mention the eldest princess. It is completely okay to say that they are 2 generations, although they are indeed 2 generations. It's just that the generation and age are completely reversed. The regent, who is just in his early 20s, is 1 generation older than the princess, who is nearly 40 years old, so that the generation of the entire royal family has been lowered by the regent. Then, Nan 11, who was originally a young girl, was a junior in front of the eldest princess, but because she married the regent, she became her elder. This change in relationship is really hard to look at calmly. If neither of them cares, it's fine. They just nod and smile when they meet, but if the other party really cares, then the eldest princess really has to bow in front of Nan 11 and call her little aunt. This kind of depression and anger is probably only known to the eldest princess herself. But the regent is a person that no one dares to offend. With this evil god around, everyone has to be inferior to Nan 11. The girl of the Nan family used to be arrogant and domineering. She dared to be arrogant in front of me. Now that she has become the regent's wife, her status has naturally risen. Who else can she take seriously? The queen said lightly, still resenting the embarrassment of being slapped in the face by the regent in public. That was also the first time she was slapped by the emperor. She was so embarrassed that she was in a bad mood. As long as the regent still holds power, she can only be arrogant and domineering. Although this sentence is a bit bold, it inadvertently states the most unquestionable fact at the moment. The regent has power in the court and the power in his hands has threatened the emperor's country, so he must be removed. The atmosphere in Xi'an Palace is a bit stagnant. Girl of the Wen family, the Queen Mother spoke lightly, looking at Wen Lan who was sitting beside her with a majestic look, with a kind of gloomy color in her eyes that people could not understand. "Do you really like the regent?" Wen Lan was silent for a while, and the belief that she had always insisted on before could not help but start to waver at this time. She was weighing the pros and cons. As a legitimate daughter of a noble family, She knew very well that the Queen Mother and the Emperor would not tolerate the regent. The uncle and nephew would turn against each other sooner or later. Either the regent would be killed or the Emperor would be pulled down from the throne. But she had confidence before. She knew that the regent was powerful. As long as the power of 400,000 troops was firmly in his hands, even the Emperor could not do anything to him. If she could become the regent princess, then the Wen family would naturally stand behind the regent, and the regent would be even more powerful. If he really broke up with the Emperor one day in the future, it would be entirely possible for him to take the throne. But the regent married Nan 11 without hesitation. Her dream of becoming the regent princess has been shattered. The Queen Mother asked her this question, obviously to use her to deal with the regent. Wen Lan knew that the Queen Mother was no match for the regent. At this time, all the people in Xi'an Palace were not enough for the regent to deal with. She didn't want to wade into this muddy water and didn't want to be a pawn in the hands of the Queen Mother. She couldn't bear the regent's anger. But she wanted to get rid of Nan 11 more than anyone else. As long as Nan 11 was a stumbling block, her wish would never be achieved. After a long silence, so long that the Queen Mother's expression was not very good, Wen Lan finally nodded lightly, "I will not marry anyone other than the regent." This answer seemed to be within the Queen Mother's expectations, but when she heard Wen Lan say it herself, she still smiled a little. "In this case, I have a way, maybe it can help you." Wen Yan's heart skipped a beat, but she clenched her handkerchief quietly. "Please give me your instructions, Queen Mother." The sky gradually darkened, the evening sunset slowly fell, and the black curtain gradually enveloped it. The palace lanterns were twinkling in the imperial garden. Accompanied by a loud announcement of "The Emperor has arrived." "The Empress Dowager has arrived." "The Queen has arrived." "All the ladies have arrived." The ministers who had already sat down stood up and paid homage, and the noble ladies and princesses scattered in the imperial garden also gathered together to pay homage to the Emperor and the Queen Mother. "I wish the Empress Dowager a long life and good health, and may she live 1,000 years. Your Highness, long live the Emperor. Your Highness, long live the Empress." The voices of worship rose and fell, echoing throughout the imperial garden, but the regent sat at the first seat under the high platform, holding the wine cup and sipping elegantly. "Stand up," the Emperor spoke majestically. "Everyone, please take your seats." The civil and military ministers entered the men's seats one after another, and the women crossed the curtain screen and entered the women's seats on the right. The Empress Dowager, the Emperor, and the Empress stepped onto the wooden ladder and walked up to the temporary high platform, sitting in the main seat in front, while the concubines in the harem sat in turn on the left and right of the Emperor and Empress. The Emperor and his concubines were on the high platform, and the civil and military ministers were located directly below the high platform. Accompanied by the eunuchs' loud singing, the banquet begins. The music started, and the atmosphere became formally noisy. Delicacies were presented continuously like flowing water, the palace maids shuttled between the banquets, the aroma of wine was everywhere, and the fragrance of flowers in the imperial garden was refreshing and refreshing. On the red carpet under the high stage, dancers in gauze clothes came one after another, presenting amazing dance moves, and the music played by the court musicians also made the listeners intoxicated. Everything seemed so joyful. Wen Lan sat quietly on the right seat separated by a curtain screen. There were exquisite fruit snacks and fine wine on the pearwood table in front of her, but she had no interest in enjoying them. Holding the sachet given to her by the Queen Mother in her sleeve, Wen Yan's palms were slightly sweaty. She looked at Nan 11 sitting opposite her calmly, pursed her lips slightly, and couldn't stop the tug of war in her heart. "Wen Lan, why don't you eat?" Linjia's voice sounded beside him. "Eat something first to fill your stomach, we will present a gift to the Queen Mother later. By the way, you just paid respects to the Queen Mother in Xi'an Palace, have you presented the gift?" Wen Lan came back to her senses and turned to look at Linjia. "What gift?" "A gift for the Queen Mother." Linjia looked at her strangely. today is the Queen Mother's birthday, don't we have to present a gift? You didn't prepare it? Wen Lan calmed down and smiled calmly, how could the Queen Mother not prepare a gift? Speaking of gifts, she couldn't help but think of the unpleasantness with Nan 11 in Moyo Pavilion yesterday. Thinking of what Nan 11 said, which made her lose face in public, when Ian's hesitation was instantly replaced by hatred, and there was no hesitation at all. Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbspeed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 184. Wen Lan, are you worried about something? Lin Jie noticed that Wen Ian's expression tonight was a little abnormal, and couldn't help turning her head and asking, if you have anything to say, you can tell me. The two of them were sitting next to each other, so it was convenient for them to talk. Wen Lan turned her head and looked at her. Lin Jie was eating a piece of cake from the imperial kitchen in her hand with relish. She looked like a simple girl, just like she had never walked away from her birthday party before, and her attitude had not changed at all. When Ian's heart moved slightly, and she looked at her hesitantly, I want to ask you for help with something. Me, Lin Jie was surprised and took a bite of the pineapple cake. What is it? There is a misunderstanding between Miss Nan and me, Wen Lan said calmly. I used to be a little dissatisfied with her being able to marry the regent, but you know that the regent is very powerful and dotes on Miss Nan, and I don't want to offend her. This sentence seemed to show a bit of weakness. Lin Jie was surprised, then smiled knowingly. Do you want to make peace with her? Wen Lan nodded lightly. So I want to ask you for a favor. How to help? Please ask her out for me. Wen Lan lowered her voice, and saw Nan 11 who was whispering with Yeching Cheng across from her from the corner of her eyes, and her eyebrows deepened. I have something to talk to her in person. When? Lin Jie didn't think much, and asked directly, tomorrow. Wen Lan thought for a moment, is it okay now? Now, Lin Jie was stunned, then turned his head to look at the platform with some embarrassment, and then lowered his voice, the Queen Mother's birthday banquet has just begun, it's not a good time to leave. What's wrong with that? Wen Lan lowered her eyebrows to hide the emotions in her eyes. Missing tonight means missing the best time, and besides. She couldn't help but clench the brocade bag in her sleeves, and she shook her head gently, the Queen Mother won't blame. Lin Jie looked at her in surprise. The Queen Mother won't blame? Does this mean that the Queen Mother already knows, or is it that the Queen Mother instructed her to reconcile with Nan 11? A trace of deep thought flashed through Lin Jie's eyes, and he nodded calmly. In that case, I'll go ask her. Wen Lan straightened her skirt, stood up and said, I'll go to Yujing Pavilion to wait for Miss Nan. After saying this, she left the table without waiting for Lin Jie's response. A noble lady noticed her leaving and couldn't help but feel strange, and asked in a low voice. Lin Jie couldn't help but frowned, staring at Wen Ian's back thoughtfully for a while, thinking to herself, she just said to help ask Nan 11, and she didn't know whether Nan 11 would agree or not. Suppressing the strange emotions in her heart, Lin Jie walked to Nan 11, bent down and whispered in her ear. After hearing her words, Nan 11 raised her eyes casually, her sight passed through the seats opposite Wen Lan, and looked at the empty seats, with a cold smile in her eyes. Since Miss Wen sincerely apologized, how can I refuse? Lin Jie frowned slightly, but I think things are a little unusual. If you don't want to go, just pretend I didn't say anything. Nan 11's side turned slightly and fell on the high platform in front of her. The Queen Mother, the Emperor, the Queen, the eldest princess and the concubines in the harem were all sitting in the brocade tent on the platform, with precious fans and canopies and brocade and nobleness. They are a real family, the family of the Emperor. Although it seems that everyone is concentrating on appreciating the dance of the court dancers on the red carpet, hidden under such a noisy and joyful surface, how many intentions and eagerness are inadvertently leaked from their eyes. Yes, they are the emperor's family, centered on the emperor. One is his mother, the other is his sister, and the others are his wives and concubines. Although Rong Yu, the regent who holds great power, has the same surname as Rong, he is excluded by them. Not only do they exclude and fear him, they even want to find a way to get rid of Rong Yu at any moment. For this reason, they can ignore any means, even if they are dirty, dark, dirty, and despicable means, as long as they can achieve their goals. Nan 11 lowered her eyes, and her eyebrows slowly became stained with a layer of cold and sarcastic color. In this case, let's make a break early. It is not right to be kind to some cockroaches and rats that often make people feel bad. Indulging them again and again is a disguised way to disgust yourself. These people are born with a tendency to be masochistic, and they also have persecution delusions. They always think that others are a threat to them, but in fact they can't see their own weight at all, and they are narrow-minded, selfish, and suspicious, so they think that everyone is the same as them. Nan 11 retracted her gaze and said in a light tone, "I'll go talk to Miss Wen." Lin Jia frowned, "I'll go with you." "No need." Nan 11 shook her head slowly, her tone meaningful, "Some things may not be convenient to say in front of you. Miss Wen and I will solve our own problems ourselves." In fact, Lin Jia is also a woman with no power. If something really happens later, Yin Yu and Yin Shuang will have to take care of Lin Jia's safety. Lin Jia hesitated, "But what if?" Nan 11 whispered, "If I haven't come back after an incense stick of time, you tell the regent." Lin Jia pursed her lips and hummed, "Be careful, stay near Yujing Pavilion, don't go too far. The Imperial Garden is so big, if something unexpected happens, the regent may not be able to make it in time to rescue people." Nan 11 smiled lightly, "I know, don't worry." She is not a person who allows others to calculate, but just wants to see what tricks Wen Lan is playing. Nan 11 stood up and left the table. Just as she was about to leave, Ye Qingqing's lazy voice sounded next to her, "What are you going to do?" After a slight pause, Nan 11 turned to look at her and said, "There are some personal matters to deal with." Ye Qingqing's red lips curled up, "The princess, will go with you." Nan 11 shook her head, "No need. I don't know any of these noble ladies, and it's boring to sit here." Ye Qingqing stood up, glanced at the women who were looking at them, and said in a calm tone, "I don't know which direction to go if I want to change my clothes. I'll be following the Princess Regent tonight." After saying that, he took Nan 11's arm very naturally, "Let's go." Nan 11 then refused no more. Accompanied by Yunyu and Yin Huang, Nan 11 and Ye Qingqing slowly left everyone's sight, walked on the quiet bluestone road and the long corridor to Yujing Pavilion where Wen Lan was located. "It's easy to hide from open guns, but hard to guard against hidden arrows," Ye Qingqing said in a calm tone. "You are a weak little girl, so it's better not to accept others' appointments easily, so as not to be plotted against." Nan 11 smiled faintly, "I know she has bad intentions. She just had an unpleasant incident in Moyo Pavilion yesterday, and she came here today to show her kindness. No matter how you think about it, she has ulterior motives. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered." Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 185. Leaving the lively and glorious Zongqi Palace, the two walked into the secluded depths of the Imperial Garden. The palace lanterns in the garden were lit up, making the quiet Imperial Garden filled with light. Yujing Pavilion is an exquisite attic located in the Plum Garden to the west of Zongqi Palace. It only takes a short walk to make a cup of tea. The emperor or the concubines of the harem sometimes came here to enjoy the flowers and wander around, and they used it as a place to rest when they were tired. Standing on the top of the attic and overlooking the scenery of the Plum Garden, the feeling will be completely different, and you will often even feel like you are riding the wind back to the immortal. Now that you know she has ulterior motives, how dare you come, Ye Cheng said casually. Although you have two powerful subordinates, Yin Yu and Yin Shuang, you have to know that no matter how strong they are only human beings, not gods. They can protect your safety in most situations, but they cannot be foolproof. Nan 11 was silent for a moment and said calmly, is there anything in this world that can guarantee absolute foolproofness? Even if wrong you and I are inseparable every day, there is no guarantee that accidents will not happen in the future. Being born in a royal family, you should know better than anyone that dangers are everywhere, so be prepared. Once you get it, you can't prevent it forever. I can't just passively wait for others to come to trouble me. I should also learn to fight back. Ye Cheng raised his lips and raised his eyebrows. What if you were plotted because of this? Wen Lan stayed in the Queen Mother's palace for a long time tonight. She was very hostile to me yesterday, but today she suddenly showed her kindness, which must have been under the Queen Mother's instruction. Nan 11 spoke calmly and analyzed methodically. Wen Lan hates me and wants to get rid of me quickly, but the Queen Mother's target is not me, a little shrimp, but wrong you, so tonight's conspiracy must be against me and wrong you. The Queen Mother used Wen Lan as a chess piece. With Wen Yan's keenness, it was impossible not to guess that the Queen Mother was using her. However, she was willing to be used by the Queen Mother. She obviously had her own plans. Ye Cheng frowned slightly, with a hint of boredom on his face. Wherever there are people, there are intrigues. I have dealt with many such scenes when I was in Shu. It's really annoying. Nan 11 smiled. Seventh princess, let alone the concubines in the harem, I'm afraid there will be no peace between you sisters. You are right. Ye Cheng nodded. It is said that in the royal family, fathers and sons and brothers can kill each other for the throne. In fact, it is difficult for sisters to love each other without fighting for the throne. The two walked and chatted, and entered the plum garden through several inner doors. The light was slightly darker than outside, but they still saw the woman in an elegant dress standing outside the plum garden from a distance. Princess. Yin Huang, who had always been as cold and indifferent as a shadow, suddenly spoke and stopped at the same time. This woman is not Miss Wen. As soon as these words came out, Nan 11 and Ye Cheng stopped at the same time, their eyes slightly raised and fell on the elegant woman in front of them. Her figure and appearance are almost the same as Wen Yan's, and her hairstyle and clothing are also the same. From a distance, she is undoubtedly Miss Wen. Yunyu's voice suddenly turned cold and she continued, it's indeed not Miss Wen. Nan 11 watched quietly for a moment, then suddenly raised her eyebrows with interest. What are you trying to do by being so mysterious? Perhaps the Queen Mother is planning to do something grand tonight, Ye Cheng said lightly, turning to look around. We may have fallen into a trap. Yin Huang and Yunyu walked to the side of Ye Cheng and Nan 11, looking at the surroundings with wary eyes. There are people in front, behind and on the left and right. They should be the shadow guards in the palace. Nan 11 smiled. It's indeed a big deal. Yunyu and Yin Huang could feel the shadow guards in the palace moving out. They must be shadow guards, and there must be more than one or two. The palace shadow guards are definitely not something that a wealthy lady like Wen Lan can mobilize. Apart from the emperor, only the Queen Mother has the authority to mobilize so many shadow guards. So the Queen Mother plans to use shadow guard to deal with her? Nan 11 smiled. Of course it's impossible. Why do we need to dispatch so many shadow guards to deal with a delicate woman like her who doesn't know martial arts? There is no murderous intent, Yin Shuang said coldly, but there are at least 15 people watching us secretly. Yin Shuang and I are no match for each other. Yin Yu frowned. They don't have murderous intent. The most likely reason is that they want to trap us. Trap them? Nan 11 smiled lightly. Actually, I want to know where Wen Lan is now more than their purpose. The person who asked her out to meet him disappeared? I probably know where she is. Ye Cheng clicked his tongue, and a sneer appeared on his face under the veil. Someone is treating us as fools. oh no, they are treating you, the regent princess, as a fool. Nan 11 looked at the motionless woman at the entrance of Miwen in front, and said in a calm voice, so should we wait here now, or? I don't want to feed the mosquitoes here, princess. It would be more fun to go back and watch the show. Nan 11 nodded, I think so too. In that case, what are you waiting for? Yeching Cheng said casually, Yunting, deal with it. Outside Zongqi Palace, the atmosphere was lively. As soon as the dancers finished their dance, they knelt down respectfully to give birthday greetings to the Queen Mother, and then filed away. After the music stopped for a while, the sound of silk and bamboo began again. The beautiful palace maids shuttled between the seats, poured tea and wine, and presented fine wines and delicacies one after another. A group of dancers in blue walked up the red carpet with light steps and bowed respectfully to the Empress on the high throne. They all had graceful figures and soft and melodious voices, see you, the Emperor, see the Queen Mother. Flat body. Thank you, Your Majesty, and thank you, Empress Dowager. The dancers stood up, swung the veil on their arms, and began to dance flexibly. The ministers toasted each other, chatted, and talked, their eyes fell on the dancers in the middle of the red carpet, admiring their agile dance and beautiful figures. At this moment, a veiled girl in a red dance dress came in with small lotus steps, like a bright moon hidden in the clouds, like an elf suddenly appearing at night, beautiful and breathtaking, and soon bent her waist and danced with the cooperation of the blue-dressed dancer. The ministers were stunned, and they felt that the red-dressed dancer who came later looked particularly familiar. This woman was enchanting in red, with a slender figure and an extraordinary appearance. When she bent her waist and danced with her arms, her figure was as soft as a breeze blowing on a willow. Under the slightly raised veil, the outline of her face was looming, and she was full of charm and charm. The ministers slowly saw the woman's appearance, and the expressions on their faces gradually solidified. What is going on here? All the ministers turned their heads at the same time, holding their breath and looking at the regent Rongyu who was sitting beside them, wondering whether the regent had taken the wrong medicine or the regent princess. Even if they wanted to dance for the Queen Mother's birthday, they couldn't let the regent princess perform in person, right? Rongyu sat expressionlessly at the table, holding a teacup in his hand, his noble and handsome eyebrows and eyes were gloomy and unpredictable. Author's words. There will be more chapters today, and the excitement is still to come, please support me. Window. Taboola equals window. Taboola. Taboola.push, mode, thumbspeed -01, container, Taboola below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 186. The Queen Mother and the Emperor both looked at the dancing woman in silence. The faces of several princes looked strange, and they turned their heads to look at the regent, but they saw Rongyu drinking with his eyes downcast, and he didn't even look at the woman on the stage, so people had no idea what he was thinking. The regent princess danced on stage in person? The ministers fell silent involuntarily, quietly put down the wine cups in their hands, and secretly thought about what the regent meant. Let his princess dance for the Queen Mother, and show weakness and loyalty to the emperor in this way? If so, does it mean that the regent has planned to hand over the power of regent? Or, the regent didn't know that his princess suddenly danced, and it was the regent princess who took the initiative to ease the relationship between the Queen Mother and the regent? However, no matter what the reason is, it is an extremely inappropriate act for the regent princess to dance in public. To put it more seriously, it is simply a disgrace to the royal family. Does she think of herself as a dancer? Everyone had their own thoughts, but they couldn't help looking at the woman in red in the middle of the red carpet. The bright palace lanterns shone on the woman's slender and soft body. Her dancing posture was agile and soft. When she turned her wrist, the red silk ribbon on her wrist fluttered like a spirit snake. She stood on tiptoe and flexibly rotated her body. The wide skirt of her dance dress fluttered like a blooming red lotus. The veil was lightly lifted, revealing the outline of the woman's beautiful face. It was clearly the daughter of the Nan family, the new regent Princess Nan 11. At that moment, no one dared to deny that the woman's appearance and dancing posture were both beautiful beyond description. However, the banquet was silent, and no one dared to stare at the regent princess blatantly. But the more they were shy, the more awkward the atmosphere became, forming a sharp and weird contrast with the girl's graceful and agile dancing posture. Prime Minister Nan's face was particularly gloomy and ugly. If it weren't for the fact that this was the Queen Mother's birthday banquet, he would probably lose control of his temper and slam the table on the spot. It's so embarrassing. So embarrassing. Except for the sound of stringed instruments, the banquet was so quiet that no other sound could be heard. The overly quiet and strange atmosphere made the princesses and noble ladies on the side of the partition also notice something unusual. Rong Meow Meow quietly told her maid to go and see what was going on. After the maid came back and whispered in her ear, Rong Meow Meow was stunned for a moment. "What did you say?" The maid repeated in a low voice, "It's true." Rong Meow Meow was shocked and felt incredible. The regent princess danced in public? This. She subconsciously turned her head to look in the direction of Nan 11's seat and found that Nan 11 was not there. This is simply immoral and outrageous. How can it be? Meow Meow, what's wrong? Rong Le next to her said lightly, "What happened?" Rong Meow Meow turned her head to look at Rong Le, her expression was a bit hard to describe. Rong Le frowned, "What happened?" Rong Meow Meow leaned over and whispered, "Nan 11 is dancing for the Queen Mother." Rong Le was stunned. Nan 11 was dancing for the Queen Mother? How is this possible? During the banquet, a noble lady quietly stood up, stood behind the curtain partition and looked over, and was immediately shocked and speechless. "The regent princess is dancing," someone whispered this, and the noble ladies present were immediately shocked. Seeing that the regent princess's seat was empty, they became more and more suspicious and could not wait to get up to find out. So soon, one after another, they squeezed behind the partition and, with the curtain covering them, blatantly observed the dancers in the middle of the red carpet. It seems that she is really the regent princess. This figure is so beautiful. And her dancing is skillful and light. It can be seen that she has practiced, but why haven't I heard that Miss Nan is such a good dancer before? What kind of dance is she dancing? Flying dance? It seems a bit like it, but also a bit different. I didn't expect the regent princess to be such a good dancer. Are you all paying attention to the wrong point? Rong Le stood aside and reminded them lightly of the most important point: the regent princess is a royal lady. She danced in front of all the court officials. Does she not know the occasion or deliberately want to embarrass herself? Even if she is an unmarried woman, she has to pay attention to the occasion when dancing in front of the Queen Mother and the Emperor, not to mention that she has become a royal princess. The mistress of the palace should be dignified and virtuous, presiding over the inner house of the palace, not showing her face like this, flirting, and pretending to be a prostitute in front of so many civil and military officials. After she reminded them, several noble ladies fell silent and whispered, "Does the regent know about this? Shouldn't he know? There seems to be no reason for the regent to let his princess dance for the Queen Mother. In front of so many people, the regent is so embarrassed that he will divorce her in anger. The regent loves the princess deeply, he shouldn't divorce her for this matter, right? This matter? Is this still this matter? It's a serious matter, okay." Rong Le listened to the discussion of several noble ladies, narrowed his eyes slightly, and raised a sneer at the corner of his lips. It would be best to provoke the regent to be angry and divorce her directly. The sound of stringed instruments slowly fell. After the dance on the red carpet, the dancers knelt down again to salute, wishing the Queen Mother a long life and good health. The woman in red elegantly arranged her dance clothes and bowed to the Emperor and Empress on the high throne. "I wish the Empress Dowager a long life and a long life for the Emperor." Her voice was not loud. Because she had just performed a dance, her breathing was still a little rapid, and her voice seemed a little different from usual. However, this abnormality was ignored. When the voice fell, the entire imperial garden seemed to be quiet in an instant. "The princess is thoughtful," the Queen Mother said in a light tone, as if with a little relief. "I like this gift very much." The ministers were silent. Like it very much? Was the Queen Mother sure that this sentence was not a slap in the face of the regent? After the Queen Mother said no need to be polite, the dancers retreated, and only the woman in red turned and walked towards the regent. Everyone's eyes followed her involuntarily, and some people subconsciously turned their heads to look at Rong Yu, who was silent from beginning to end. "Your Highness," the woman in red walked up to Rong Yu, her white forehead slightly sweaty from the exercise. "Do I dance well?" A faint and strange fragrance permeated into his nose. Rong Yu slowly raised his eyes, his dark pupils were soaked with an icy color. "You dance well." The expressions of the ministers froze slightly. "Dance well? Then." The woman lowered her eyebrows, her tone seemed to be a little shy and happy. "I am a little tired, Your Highness, can you accompany me to walk in the imperial garden?" Rong Yu put down the wine cup and stretched out his hand to her without saying a word, and the woman in red gently handed her hand over. In the eyes of outsiders, they are really a loving couple. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 187. Isn't it? Isn't it? Yeching Cheng, who was hiding in the dark, frowned and almost wanted to rush up and tear off the woman's mask. His tone was also cold. "If you ask me, if he really recognized the wrong person, you can divorce your husband early tomorrow morning." Nan 11 stood quietly under the tree, looking at the dignified and indifferent man in the brightly lit place, raising her lips and smiling. "I'm afraid there is no chance of divorce." As soon as he finished speaking, there was only a scream, "Ah!" Everyone's nerves suddenly jumped at the table. The wrists of the woman in red were ruthlessly broken, and her body was thrown out like a kite with a broken string. She fell to the ground without resistance, her slender body curled up in pain. The face covered under the veil lost its color in pain, and her body was shaking constantly. In an instant, the air condensed, and the ministers' faces turned pale, looking at the scene in front of them in disbelief. Tiskia Ching Cheng clicked his tongue and straightened his clothes slowly, as if sorting out his mood, as expected of the regent of the great Zhou dynasty. "But then again, that woman is really dressed like you. It's almost the same. Although the disguise technique is not perfect, she cleverly covered it up with a veil. Isn't it you from a distance?" "There are 3 flaws," Nan 11 spoke slowly. "First, I can't dance. Second, I can't dance for the Queen Mother. Third, even if the above 2 are not true, Rong Yu will definitely be the first. You can tell if it's me right away. Actually, what you want to express the most is the third point, right?" Yeching Cheng sneered. "With such narcissism, it seems that the possibility of divorce does not exist." "This is not narcissism, it is absolute trust in my husband." Nan 11 smiled lightly. "If I really divorce Rong Yu, where can I find such a good husband? There is only one Rong Yu in the world, and I don't stupid." Yunding Yeching Cheng said calmly, "If this woman dressed up as me tonight to perform a dance for the Queen Mother, would you be able to recognize at a glance that she is a fake?" No one spoke, and there was silence. Yunding Yeching Cheng frowned. "I'm talking to you, are you mute?" Yunding's steady voice sounded, "Yes." Nan 11 turned to look at Yeching Cheng. "Master Yun has a gentle temperament, as gentle as jade. Don't be so cruel to him. Fierce. Ye Cheng raised his eyebrows. Am I fierce? Nan 11 said, you think you are not fierce. Ye Cheng said calmly, compared to your gentleness in front of the regent, I am definitely a little bit fierce, but for Yunting, this is already very gentle. If you don't believe me, you can ask him. Nan 11 already knows that Ye Cheng and Yunting are old acquaintances, and also knows that they had a good time before. In Ye Cheng's words, this boy is the warmest light in her life. He is so gentle, pure, and beautiful, like it has never been contaminated by the world. Such words coming out of Ye Cheng's mouth showed how much this man had touched and delighted her. However, Nan 11 could also tell that although Ye Cheng had a beautiful face, her temper was obviously domineering, not as gentle as women nowadays, and certainly not unruly and domineering. She didn't know much about the relationship between the two of them at the moment, so she simply didn't argue with her. Men and women in this world have their own temperaments and preferences. This is probably what the saying goes with which pot goes with which lid. Just as wrong you ignored all the gentle and elegant ladies from aristocratic families in the city, but liked her, an unreputable business girl in the eyes of everyone, it was the same reason. As long as they were happy, no one else could comment. His eyes fell on the dead silence in front of him. There were expressions of shock, fear, and confusion on everyone's faces. They all looked like they were afraid to breathe and had no idea what was going on. Nan 11 said calmly, it's time for us to go. Ye Cheng hummed, and the two walked over. The ministers were still dumbfounded. The noble ladies who heard the movement turned pale with fright. Looking at the woman in red who screamed in pain and couldn't stop shaking, they were so confused that they didn't know what was going on. Prince Regent, the Queen Mother stood up, barely able to restrain the sudden change in her expression. Even her voice was trembling, and she was neither angry nor anxious. What are you doing? Pretending to be a princess and ruining her reputation is a crime worthy of death. Rong Yu's voice was as cold as the cold wind passing by in the 12th lunar month. Qing Yang, kill her. The Queen Mother sternly said, how dare you? What? The officials were confused. Pretending to be a princess and ruining her reputation? Does the regent mean that this woman is not his princess? What's going on? What happened? Nan 11 was like a mysterious girl falling from the sky, and she burst into everyone's sight unexpectedly, with a look of puzzlement and confusion on her face. I just had something to talk to Princess Jing Cheng. The two left for a while. What happened here? I thought I heard someone screaming. The ministers turned their heads in disbelief, and the princesses and ladies also stared at Nan 11 in disbelief, their dull eyes as if they had suddenly seen a ghost in broad daylight. Oh no, it should be said that I saw a ghost at night. Nan 11 wanted to say something more, but in the next moment, her body fell into a familiar embrace. Two iron arms hugged her tightly, as if they were going to strangle her to death, leaving Nan 11 helpless for a moment. Say. Although it hurt a little from being strangled, Nan 11 didn't say anything. She only stretched out her hand and patted Rong Yu's back comfortingly because he was shaking. He had been so calm and indifferent just now, but now a pair of arms revealed all the nervousness in his heart. Nan 11 whispered, I'm fine, don't worry. Rong Yu closed his eyes, his voice was as cold as the death god in hell. Qing Yang. Yes, Qing Yang didn't care about the Queen Mother, he only knew to obey the orders of his master. He immediately stepped forward, drew out the long sword in his hand and stabbed it towards the heart of the woman on the ground. Suddenly, a sharp sound of weapons rubbing against each other was heard. Stop! The master beside the emperor flew out in time, without time to draw his sword, and directly hit Qing Yang with his sword unsheathed. Bang! The sword in Qin Jiang's hand encountered resistance and stabbed diagonally into the left part of the heart of the woman in red. The woman in red suddenly begged for mercy in fear. Ah! Queen Mother! Queen Mother save me! Queen Mother save me! The emperor stood up suddenly and said angrily, "Imperial guards." A messy sound of footsteps sounded, accompanied by the sound of weapons rubbing against armor, which instantly raised the anxiety and fear in people's hearts to the highest point. "Qingyang Rongyu said coldly, "Step back." Qingyang jumped up and stood back to his original position in an instant. Rongyu let go of Nan 11, but still held her hand tightly. He turned his head and looked at the emperor standing stiffly on the high platform. This woman pretended to be the regent princess, ruined the reputation of the princess, and ruined the reputation of the royal family. I wonder how the emperor plans to deal with her. I updated 8,000 words today. I am so tired. My hands hurt. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 188. The atmosphere became tense in an instant. The emperor's face was pale, and his eyes were gloomy and sharp. If you look closely, you can see the ruthlessness between his eyebrows, as if he was going to risk everything. The air stagnated for a long time. "Come here," the emperor finally spoke coldly. "Catch this woman who dared to pretend to be the regent's princess and hand her over to the Ministry of Justice for interrogation. I will give an explanation to my uncle within 3 days. The most urgent thing is to take the person away first." Yeching Cheng smiled lightly. "This princess thinks that we should first see who this fake princess is. She has such good dancing skills, such a graceful figure, and her courage is admirable. This princess has a great curiosity about her. She dared to pretend to be his beloved wife in front of the regent. Isn't this courting death?" The emperor wanted to take her away as soon as possible because he was worried that she would reveal her identity in front of the ministers. She was so guilty and had such a clumsy method, and she dared to show off in front of the regent. Yeching Cheng really doubted how this emperor stood out from the many princes and sat on the throne. Could it be that there was a master behind him? Qing Chen Yan said coldly, "This is the business of the great Zhou royal family, why are you interfering?" Yeching Cheng ignored him. "Princess Qing Cheng, it's the family affairs of the great Zhou, don't bother." His Majesty's tone was cold and majestic. "Come, take her away." The imperial guards heard the order and quickly took the woman in red away. However, some sharp-eyed people noticed that the imperial guards were cautious in their actions. They didn't seem to be rude to those who had bad intentions. Instead, they took care of the woman's injuries and almost carried her away from here. And the regent didn't seem to have any intention of stopping it. The ministers couldn't help but wonder in their hearts, doesn't the regent want to know the true identity of the woman? It's easy to think that there was something strange about this incident tonight. The Queen Mother's reaction just now was too excited. It was obvious that she wanted to protect the woman. Why did the woman pretend to be the regent's wife to dance? Is it just to ruin the reputation of the regent princess? But the regent princess went to the palace with the regent king tonight. Isn't she afraid of being exposed for pretending to be the regent princess? Everyone was puzzled, but they clearly sensed a trace of unusual atmosphere in their hearts. Rongyu Nan 11 raised her head and looked at Rongyu with gentle and affectionate eyes. "Are we going to stay here?" Rongyu shook his head. "Let's go back to the palace first." Nan 11 nodded. "I'll go back with you," Yeching Cheng said indifferently. "Although the birthday banquet is held in the imperial garden, the air here is so stinky that this princess feels uncomfortable staying here." Yeching Cheng, Yan's face was dark, and his eyes were as cold as iron, staring at her. "What nonsense are you talking about? Do you know who you are? What is the purpose of coming to Dezhou? You are too presumptuous." Yeching Cheng smiled casually. "Brother, don't be so irritable. Let the civil and military ministers of Dezhou laugh at you. It would have been better if she didn't speak." As soon as she spoke, Yan's anger was raised to the highest point, and she even poured a bucket of oil on him fearlessly. The consequence of adding fuel to the fire was that Yan flew past uncontrollably in front of everyone, and was about to slap her in the face. "You deserve to die." However, With the sound of an abrupt stop, his hand was caught in the middle of the swing, and the force was so strong that he couldn't break free. Yan raised his head angrily. Who? What came into view was a gentle and indifferent man. The familiar facial features made Yan's pupils shrink sharply, and his voice changed unconsciously. You. A man who hits a woman is not qualified to be called a man, he can only be regarded as a beast. Yunting seemed to have no strength, and he grabbed Yan's wrist lightly, and he could make him unable to move. Does Prince Ya think he is a beast? You. Yan's face was pale, and he didn't care about his wrist that was clenched so hard that it hurt. He looked at the extremely familiar face in front of him in disbelief, and his face changed drastically in shock. Who are you? How did you appear here? Who are you? Yunting let go of his wrist, slowly wiped his hand with a handkerchief, and finally threw the handkerchief away casually, as if he had touched something dirty. I am the left guardian of the pavilion master of Juxiao Pavilion, and I am here to protect the daughter of Juxiao Pavilion on behalf of the pavilion master. Yunting spoke calmly, with no emotion on his gentle face. This Princess Jingcheng from Shu is a friend of the daughter of Juxiao Pavilion, so I will protect her. Anyone who touches her is against Juxiao Pavilion. The unhurried words fell, and the whole place was in dead silence. The civil and military officials present felt nervous when they heard about Juxiao Pavilion, and then they remembered that the regent princess seemed to be the daughter of Juxiao Pavilion. On the day when the regent got married, the princess's wedding was a sensation, and the women in the entire imperial capital envied her. Such a big move was indeed from Juxiao Pavilion. Juxiao Pavilion, the Emperor Rongchuiun's face was gloomy, and his eyes suddenly fell on Yunting's face, with a sharp look in his eyes. Are you from Juxiao Pavilion? Yunting nodded calmly, yes. Why are people from Juxiao Pavilion here? Rongchuiun narrowed his eyes. Who brought you into the palace? Yunting's expression was indifferent. Juxiao Pavilion masters appear and disappear like ghosts, and there is no place in the world that they cannot go. The emperor does not need to make a fuss. This was said domineeringly. Nan 11 felt relieved, but the emperor's face was ashen, and the majesty of the emperor was deeply offended and provoked. However, even though he was furious at this moment, he couldn't do anything, not even to take this man down on the spot. You said you are from Juxiao Pavilion, so it must be true. Yan sneered. I'm afraid you just made up a fake identity to fool the emperor and the empress dowager. As he said, he turned to look at Rongchuiun. Your Majesty, I think we should arrest this man and interrogate him to see who he is. How dare he pretend to be the guardian of Juxiao Pavilion here? It shouldn't be the turn of Crown Prince Ye to question his identity. Rong Yu's voice was as cold as snow. My princess is from Juxiao Pavilion. Whether Mr. Yun is from Juxiao Pavilion or not, the princess didn't question it, but you can't wait to reveal his identity. Yan's expression changed slightly, and he said gloomily, what if the princess is not from Juxiao Pavilion either? Whether the princess is from Juxiao Pavilion or not is my business. What does it have to do with you? Rong Yu's eyebrows were cold. Prince Ye should worry about the affairs of Shu Kingdom now. If you are really bored, I don't mind finding something for you to do. Yan clenched his hands. The marriage between the two countries is hereby declared over. Rong Yu held Nan 11's hand. Before tomorrow evening, send Prince Ye away from the capital of the great Zhou dynasty. The imperial guards were seriously derelict in their duties tonight. Qin Zhou will be removed from his position as commander and punished with 30 strokes of the cane. Ling Ling will temporarily take over the imperial guards. Author's words. First update one chapter, and then another chapter will be added around 1 o'clock. There will be another chapter during the day, so there should be 3 chapters today. Give some support, leave more comments, and give 5-star praise. Window. Taboola equals window. Taboola. Taboola.push, mode, thumbspeed -01, container, Taboola below article thumbnail -300 x 250, placement, Below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 189. The emperor's expression suddenly changed. Uncle. What's your opinion, your majesty? Rong Yu's eyes were cold and his tone was bone-chilling. It's a fact that Qin Zhou has neglected his duty. The emperor thinks that my handling of this matter was inappropriate. Rong Chuiyun clenched his hands tightly. Rong Yu said coldly, come here. Pull Qin Zhou down and punish him with a cane. The temperature in the air dropped again and again, almost to freezing point. On the surface, what happened tonight was indeed a dereliction of duty by the Royal Forest Army, but what else could everyone present not understand at this time? Even if the inside story is still not clear, the Emperor and the Regent are at odds tonight. The Regent has no intention of saving face for the Emperor. Many of the ministers present are officials of third rank or above. They have been immersed in officialdom for so many years. Which one? Not a thoughtful old fox? Has the Prince Regent determined that the masterminds of tonight's farce are the Queen Mother and the Emperor? Or it should be said that this is not just a farce, but there may be a huge conspiracy hidden under the farce, which is why the Regent is furious. Qin Zhou was the Emperor's man. He was dismissed from his post and beaten, which was equivalent to directly replacing the Emperor's confidant. After 30 canes, the injuries can range from serious to serious. If the injury is more serious, the lumbar spine may be directly broken and the person may become disabled. Do you still want to lead the Royal Forest Army from now on? Ling Ling is the deputy commander of the Imperial Army and the brother of Ling Fan, the general under the Regent. With him in charge of the Imperial Army, from now on all military power inside and outside the palace will be in the hands of the Regent. The ministers couldn't help but feel awestruck when they thought of this. Their faces turned pale and they couldn't help but think about what the Regent meant. Is this to directly evade the Emperor's power? The woman pretending to be a princess, I know who she is. I didn't reveal her true identity in public tonight because she wanted to save face for a certain minister in the court. Rong Yu slowly glanced around, and his cold and frosty eyes swept across whoever is on it will make the person tremble with excitement. I have said before that I can forgive anyone who plots against me once or twice at my discretion, but the princess is the king's inverse scale, and anyone who touches her will die. The word death fell out, and an eerie cold wind seemed to blow through the air, making people unable to restrain themselves from getting goosebumps all over their bodies. The minister's legs went weak and they knelt down in fear. Please calm down the Regent. Please calm down the Regent. Someone knelt down, and others followed suit one after another, and said in panic, please calm down the Regent. The princess and the ladies of the aristocratic family who were hiding behind the partition to watch the excitement couldn't help but turned pale with fright, and they all knelt down. The Queen Mother clutched the handkerchief tightly, almost restless. She seemed to have a premonition of what Rong Yu would do next. Her eyes were full of horror. Mother, mother, the eldest princess sitting next to the Queen Mother spoke, her voice trembling slightly, what is the Regent going to do? Is he going to rebel? Does he really dare to rebel? The Queen Mother's face turned extremely pale, and her eyes were fixedly staring at the bottom of the high platform. Under the lamplight, the usually indifferent eyebrows and eyes of the man with a dignified and handsome face were stained with a layer of evil aura, like the god of death coming from hell, which made people feel uncontrollably frightened and almost split their liver and gallbladder. She didn't understand at all, how could things tonight, how could they be completely beyond her control? She clearly gave Wenlan a bag of tips. She even told Wenlan a perfect plan and asked Wenlan to act according to her plan. As long as the plan succeeds tonight. She asked Wenlan to transfer Nan 11 away from Zongqi Palace on the grounds of apology. As long as Nan 11 followed Wen Yan's invitation and went to Yujing Pavilion, the shadow guards she arranged there would be able to trap her. Nan 11 was not present so that Wen Lan could pretend to be her and dance in public. Such an action would definitely make the regent feel embarrassed. In full view of the public, the regent could only suppress his anger. However, anger can easily make people lose control of their emotions. In this case, he couldn't tell whether Nan 11 was fake or not. As long as Wen Lan has a chance to get close to him, he can let the medicine in the kid take effect. When the regent is poisoned, not only can he cook with Wen Lan while unconscious, but the poison will still remain from now on. In his body, it slowly eroded his meridians, bones and blood, making him weaker and weaker. He could no longer control the military and could not even perform martial arts. As long as the plan succeeds, Rong Yu will be controlled by her and the emperor from now on. However, what went wrong? Why did Rong Yu see through the princess so easily? Why did Nan 11, who was supposed to be trapped in Yujing Pavilion, suddenly appear here? Why couldn't all the plans develop as she expected? Why is even God going against her? Why? The Queen Mother's birthday banquet can continue. I am tired, so I will take the princess back to the palace to rest first. Rong Yu's cold voice sounded. All the ministers continue to eat and drink to celebrate. After the banquet is over, go back and rest early. I will go to court tomorrow morning. Something important to announce. After a pause, he added coldly, Qin Zhou should not be punished less than a stick. If anyone wants to challenge this king's order, they can give it a try. The whole place was dead silent. Deathly silence. Rong Chuiun's face turned pale, and he stood beside the dragon chair as stiffly as a wooden sculpture, unable to say a word. After Rong Yu said these words, he left, taking his princess with him, followed by Princess Jingcheng and Yunting. No one dared to stop him. Even until he left the brightly lit Zongqi Palace, walked out of the imperial garden step by step, and gradually moved away from everyone's sight, Zongqi Palace was still so quiet that you could hear a pin drop. There was a chilling and unsettling atmosphere in the air. The birthday banquet continued. The ministers continued to eat and drink to celebrate. Who dared to stay and eat and drink to celebrate? The ministers sighed softly and were about to find an excuse to leave, but they saw the Queen Mother stood up. She was obviously no longer in the mood to eat and drink. After trying to calm down her uneasy mood, she asked the eunuch to pass on the message, the Queen Mother, returned to the palace. Everyone seemed to be awakened suddenly, and turned around in a kneeling position, shouting, farewell to the Queen Mother, the Queen Mother. Live 1,000 years, live 1,000 years, live 1,000 years. Farewell to the Emperor. Long live the Emperor. The Queen Mother lifted her stiff legs and walked down the wooden stairs in a daze. The Emperor, the Queen, and the eldest princess followed silently behind her. As she was about to turn around and leave, the Queen Mother suddenly stopped and turned to look at the ministers kneeling on the ground, trying to maintain a calm tone. The regent is just in a bad mood tonight. It is a fact that the royal guards failed in their duties. They should be punished accordingly. The regent princess was wronged, and it is normal for the regent to lose his temper in anger. Your Majesty, later order someone to pick out a few nice things from the treasury and send them to the regent palace, and also send the 2 rolls of moonlight yarn that Prince Ye just brought to the regent princess, so that she can make some beautiful clothes. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 190. The Queen Mother was looking for a way out for herself and the Emperor. However, after hearing this, the ministers who spoke had mixed feelings in their hearts. The Emperor has been on the throne for more than a year, but has not successfully regained the power of the government. Although there is a reason why the regent is unwilling to delegate power, the essence is that the Emperor is too afraid of the regent. If the Emperor showed his reliance, trust, and kindness to the regent, the regent's temperament would not disdain to go against the emperor and the queen mother, and the regent, who holds military power, would have no reason to embarrass the emperor. But why can't the emperor trust the regent a little more? The country has not yet been firmly established, and the foundation is still shallow. The mother and son are plotting against the regent and the regent. Isn't this asking for death? Not to mention using such low-level tricks. It's fine now. I have completely offended the regent. Now that the relationship is so tense, with the regent's temper, he might directly announce the dethronement of the emperor and the establishment of a new emperor at the court tomorrow morning. I am afraid that the emperor and the queen mother will not even have the slightest strength to resist. No. So the queen mother was afraid. She realized that she had completely angered the regent, and they couldn't predict what the angry regent would do, and they didn't even dare to think about the consequences, so they were eager to find a way to appease them. However, at this time, they wanted to appease them. Can the princess regent save the situation? It is true that the princess regent was born in a merchant family, but a woman from a merchant family has never seen any rare treasures, cannot afford to wear silks and satins, and who is short of good things. What's the use of trying to comfort me now? What were you doing earlier? The royal family members and cabinet ministers felt sad and tired for a moment, and were really disappointed with the emperor and the queen mother. Your Majesty, Prime Minister King Chi came over and spoke meaningfully. I wonder what Your Majesty, Prime Minister, thinks of the current situation. Nanzingzi looked decadent. Hearing this, he only looked at him expressionlessly and said nothing. What do you think? What could he think? If the emperor is really ignored, he, the prime minister, has done his best. Even though there are many disciples in the prime minister's palace, half of the ministers in the court support the emperor. But if the regent really uses strong tactics, half of the ministers will. How many people dare to confront the regent head-on? Nanzingzi felt as if a layer of gloom had fallen over his heart. Only now did he really regret that he should not have snubbed Yuanqi and disliked her background. In addition to the increasingly difficult life in the prime minister's office after Yuanqi divorced her husband, his situation among his colleagues also became more and more difficult. Awkward. He didn't have much money, so even sitting with his colleagues to have tea and chat became a luxury. He postponed too many dinner parties, and his contacts with the court ministers gradually faded. He was forced to take bribes these days. Idea. But the ministers in the court all knew that the prime minister was honest and never accepted bribes, so they just pretended to be deaf and dumb these days. The prime minister's house was having a hard time, and no one gave him any money to help him out. And Nan 11. If her mother Yuanqi had not left and the couple had a harmonious relationship, Nan 11 would still be his legitimate daughter in the prime minister's palace. The daughter-in-law of the prime minister's palace became the princess regent, and she was very famous. For him, the prime minister, it was the icing on the cake. With the protection of the prince regent's palace, there was no way that the prime minister's palace would be in this situation. However, Nanzingzi sometimes gritted his teeth with hatred, hating Nan 11 for being unfilial to his father, hating the regent for being cold to his father-in-law, and hating the Yuan family for being unkind. If Nan 11 could have dissuaded Yuan when she divorced her husband, nothing would have happened now. The prime minister's mansion would still be the same prime minister's mansion as before, with great scenery and majesty, instead of ending up in such a shabby situation. Nanzingzi raised his head and looked at the pavilions in the distance, feeling a deep sense of exhaustion and powerlessness. The emperor sent the queen mother into Xi'an Palace, with the eldest princess and the queen following him. The atmosphere along the way was solemn, and everyone's expressions were not good-looking. The queen mother frowned and her face was gloomy, and everyone seemed to be shrouded in a layer of fear and uneasiness. Did the emperor send someone to the regent's palace? Rong Chuiyun nodded, yes. The queen mother thought for a moment and said, Pan Hai, you select a few more rare items from the AI family's private treasury and send them to the Princess Regent. You must see her face in person. If the Princess Regent refuses to let you in, you will kneel down in the palace. When will the Regent be willing to see you? When will the AI family get up again, and then give the things to the Regent and say more nice things? Mother Rong Chuyun looked slightly cold. Is this necessary? The Queen Mother closed her eyes and said in a cold voice, tonight, the AI family was careless and ill-calculated. Now we can only comfort the Princess Regent. Otherwise, if Rong Yu does something in the court tomorrow morning, the Emperor will be in a worrying situation. The eldest princess's face changed and she said coldly, do so many royal family members just let the Regent do whatever they want? He can do whatever he wants? Who is in charge of this country? Why should the Emperor look at his face in everything? The situation is stronger than the people. What can we do if we don't bow down? The Queen Mother said coldly. The AI family was too impatient and failed to plan well, so they lost their troops and generals tonight and suffered heavy losses. Rong Chuyun's expression was sinister and ugly. The majesty of the Emperor had been trampled to pieces under his feet. He couldn't stay here any longer. The Queen returns to the palace to rest early. I will go to the royal study first. The Queen Mother hummed, recruit all the clan members and cabinet ministers and think of countermeasures. Rong Chuyun gave a lukewarm hum, turned around and headed to the study with a sullen face. The Empress Dowager Luan drove to the gate of Xi'an Palace. Normally, there would be palace attendants kneeling and saluting, but today it was unusually quiet. The eldest maid next to the Empress Dowager walked up and coldly shouted, where are the people who died? Are there any rules? When the Queen Mother returns to the palace, why don't you come out and greet her? No one spoke. The excessive silence seemed a bit eerie at night, giving people an inexplicable sense of foreboding. What's going on? The eldest princess looked angry. Do all the slaves think that the Queen Mother will not return to the palace so early tonight, and everyone is lazy? Find them one by one later, drag them out and kill them with sticks. This is simply unreasonable. The Queen Mother was in a bad state and was not even in the mood to have a seizure at this time. The four maids holding lamps stepped into the palace gate first. The Queen Mother got off the sedan chair and walked into the palace garden with the support of the Queen and the eldest princess. There are several stone steps in front of the palace, and the palace maids carefully surround the Queen Mother and the eldest princess. The Queen Mother, walk slowly and be careful of the stone steps. The palace maid bowed and led the Queen Mother into the luxurious bedroom. The lights in the palace were lit, illuminating the palace brightly. However, after the extreme silence, a scream of fear erupted directly from Xi'an Palace. Ah! The screams were full of shock and fear, cutting through the silent night and soaring into the sky.